In this video, I'll be making a child size hat of the My First Crochet beanie. And you can see this one here is the child size beanie with the rib brim. And we've got the women's beanie here with a nice fluffy pom-pom, and the large beanie here, which is suitable for larger adults, men as well. And that's just got the plain brim here. And that's using an 8mm hook and some Cascade from Placard yarn. Let's get started. And the first thing we're going to do is make 4 chain stitches. We'll make a slip knot first, put that slip knot onto our hook, and make 4 chain stitches. 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to join our 4 chain into a ring using a slip stitch. So my hook's going to go straight down the centre of that very first chain, and then I'll make a slip stitch. So that's yarn over and draw it through everything that's on my hook. And now I've got a little ring there. Now we're going to do round 1. We begin with 2 chain. Oops. And then we're going to make 11 trebles into our centre circle or our ring here. So that's yarn over, our hook goes down the centre circle, yarn over and draw it back through, and I've got 3 loops on my hook. Let's yarn over, and I'm going to draw it through these first 2 loops here. And then yarn over through the second 2 loops. So that's my 2 chain and my very first treble there, and I'll just wiggle that up close to its neighbour. And I'm going to make 10 more trebles, so that's yarn over, and then my hook goes straight down the centre of my centre circle or my ring, yarn over, draw it back through, yarn over, and I'll draw it through the first 2 loops, and yarn over through the second 2 loops or the last 2 loops. And I'll do that again, yarn over, down the centre of the circle, yarn over, draw it back through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over through the first 2 loops, and yarn over through the second 2 loops. And I'll keep going until I've got all 11 trebles. Get my tail out of the way. So the hat starts right at the top of the crown, and we'll increase for the crown and then work the sides of the hat and then the brim. And it's a nice quick pattern, instant satisfaction. Let's count how many trebles we've got. Our 2 chain, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost there. Oh. So let's count that 2 chain, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So our 2 chain counts as our first treble. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Got one too many. There we go. Got a bit excited there and added an extra one. So now we're going to join our round by using a slip stitch into the second chain from the beginning of our round. And we've got 1, 2. So this is our second chain from the beginning of the round. And I'm going to do a slip stitch in this chain here. And I want to dive straight down the center of this chain. So my hook is going to go straight down here, and I'm going to catch 2 strands of yarn. So that's the top leg of the chain and the little bump on the back of that chain. So what you can see there is I've got 2 strands of yarn, and I'll do a slip stitch. So that's yarn over, and I'll draw it through everything that was on my hook. So now I've joined that circle. So now I'm up to round 2. So that's 2 chain, 1, 2. And now I'm going to do 1 treble in the same place as that 2 chain. And you can actually see a little hole there waiting for me to do that first treble just there. So yarn over into that little space waiting for me, yarn over, draw it back through, yarn over through the first 2 loops, and yarn over through the last 2 loops. And now I'm going to do 2 treble in the next stitch. So that's yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, draw it back through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over through the first 2 loops, and yarn over through the last 2 loops. And I'm going to do a second treble in that exact same space. And I'm going to do 2 treble in each stitch all the way around. So I'm doubling the amount of stitches in this round, or increasing. So I had 12 stitches in the first round, and I should end up with 24 stitches in the second round. So I'll keep going around doing 2 treble in each stitch. Okay, 2 in that one, 2 in the next one. So you want to just keep checking as you're going around that you've got 2 stitches in each stitch so that you're not forgetting any. And you can see that when I go into my stitches, I'm going under both strands of the stitch that is sitting right on top of my treble stitch. I'm not going any lower, I'm not going between the treble stitches, and I'm not going into a single strand. I'm going under both strands there. So I've just got 2 strands on top of my hook, and it almost looks like the chain stitch that's running along the edge of the work here.
It's crochet. Yeah, because I think crocheting's easier for a hand. Okay.
And we're coming up towards the end here. And as you get towards the end, you might like to give your stitches a count, and that will give you an idea if you are at the end. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to tell whether you're at the last stitch or not. And so a good way to tell is if you count your stitches, and if you've got 24 stitches, well, you'll know you're at the end. And if you haven't quite got 24 stitches, you'll know you've still got a stitch to go. Looks like I've got 1 more stitch to go, but I will count my stitches after this just to be certain. Keeping the correct stitch count is essential for this pattern to work, and it's essential for most patterns to work, really. So it's a good idea to take the time to count your stitches. So let's see, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So we're all good. We can join our round. So we're going to join this round in the same manner that we did with our previous round by making a slip stitch in the second chain from the beginning of the round. So we've got 1, 2 chains that we made at the beginning of the round, and we'll do a slip stitch into this second chain from the beginning of the round in the same way we did here. So my hook will go straight down the center of this second chain, catching the top leg of the V here of this chain, so this one here, and a little bump on the back. So my hook goes straight down the center of the V, and sometimes you do have to put a little bit of pressure on this stitch to make the hook go through. And there we are. So I do have 2 strands of yarn on top of my hook and just a single strand underneath. So that's how I know it's in the correct spot. So now I'll do my yarn over and draw it through everything that's on the hook. And that's our round joined. So that's our second round joined, and we're well on the way to making our hat. So now we're up to round 3. So it begins with 2 chain, 1, 2, and then we're going to make 2 treble in the next stitch along. So that's yarn over, and our hook goes straight through, yarn over, draw it through, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, through the first 2 loops, and yarn over through the second 2 loops, and we'll make another treble stitch in that exact same stitch. And there we go. And then we're going to do 1 treble in the next stitch. And then we'll make 2 treble in the next stitch, so the next one along. another treble in the same stitch. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to tell if you want to go in this stitch or that stitch. This is definitely the next stitch along. You want to just sometimes pull your work out and you can see, this one is already occupied. I know that this must be my next stitch along. So we're going to do one stitch in this stitch, one treble in this stitch, and two treble in the next stitch. And that sequence will be repeated all the way around. So this round is going to increase by 12 stitches. So we had 24 stitches in our last round, so we should end up with 36 stitches at the end of this round. One more stitch in this stitch. And there we go. And you can see that this pattern does grow quite quickly and it won't take you long to make a hat. 2 stitches in the next stitch. Yarn over. One more stitch in this stitch. We're about halfway around now. And 2 in the next stitch. And let's see, yes, one more. One in the next stitch. Two in the next stitch. One in the next stitch, and we're almost at the end. And just like before, I'll count my stitches before I close the round just to make sure I'm still on track. Just to make sure I haven't accidentally made a mistake partway through the round. It can happen easily enough. And how many in this one? 2. and one more in there and 2 in the last stitch. On here and 2 in this stitch, and then I'll count my stitches to make sure I've got 36. And let's see, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Excellent. So now I'll close this round with a slip stitch in the second chain from the beginning, just like we have with the previous rounds. So I've got 1, 2 chain. So my slip stitch will go in this second chain from the beginning of the round, straight down the center of the chain. And I do have to put a little bit of extra pressure on that stitch to get the hook to go through, which is normal. So don't panic that you're doing something wrong if you need to put a little bit of extra pressure on there. Not too much, you don't want to be ripping your yarn or anything like that, but yeah, sometimes you do have to put a little bit of extra pressure on there. Yarn over, draw it through and through the loop that was already on your hook. And now we've joined that round as well. So we've got round 1, round 2 and round 3. So we're on to round 4. Begins with 2 chain, just like all previous rounds. And now we're going to do 1 treble in each of the next 7 stitches. So that's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
That's like my dog's food. Oh, is it? It's a groodle, but it's a colour.
7. So I've got my 2 chain and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trebles, and then I do 2 treble in the next stitch.
I know, my husband's allergic to dogs. Well, he's allergic to dogs, but he's very minimal. He's okay. Give it a couple of jumps all around. Yeah.
And now we will do 1 treble in each of the next 8 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I will just count those 8 stitches to make sure I'm still on track. So there's my increase. I can tell that I've got 2 stitches coming out of the 1 stitch there, so I should have 8 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I do. And I'll do 2 in there. 1, 2, and we'll do 1 stitch in each of the next 8 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 in the next stitch. So we're only increasing 4 stitches in this round and should end up with 40 stitches at the end. And we'll do 8 more stitches before we increase in the very last stitch. 1, 2, 3, 'Whoops. Do that one again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 in the last stitch. 1, oops, I put that stitch in the wrong spot. You can see there I've put it between the 2 stitches rather than in the top of the stitch. So I'm going to do that one again. There we go, that's in the right spot now. And our very last stitch. And now we'll join our round. And it joins in the exact same way as all the others with a slip stitch in the second chain from the beginning of the round. And needs a little bit of a wiggle, especially with this giant hook. There we go. Yarn over through everything. And now you can start to see that it's starting to curve around a little bit because we only did a few increases in that round. So we're starting to get a little bit of a curve on the crown of the hat. Now we're going to start doing the sides of the hat, and there's no increases in the sides of the hat. They're just straight. That means we just do 1 stitch in each stitch all the way around. We begin the round the same way that we've started every round, with 2 chain. And then we do 1 treble in each stitch all the way around. And we should end up with 40 stitches at the end of the round. because we're not increasing or decreasing any stitches. Whoops. Catch my stitch again. Oops. Put the hook in the wrong spot again. And we're about a third of the way around. We'll keep going. So we've got 2 rounds of just plain. So it's rounds 5 and 6. And then we get into a little bit of the brim action. So as you can see, it doesn't take long to complete one of these hats. Great for a gift, or if you've got a cold day coming up and you want to make yourself a hat. Oops, split the yarn there. Trying to go too fast. And we're almost at the end of this first plain round. oops, do that one again. Just about at the end now. And we'll do one more round of plain after this. That's at the end now, and we're going to join using a slip stitch in that second chain from the beginning of the round. Yarn over, draw it through everything. So I'm actually just going to turn it back in the right way. So there we go. Starting to see a nice round hat now. And the next round is exactly like that round that we just did. So it begins with 2 chain. And I'll just get some more yarn and just do 1 stitch in each stitch all the way around, just like what we just did then. And if you wanted to make a slouchy version, you'd do 1 more plain round before beginning the brim. And this is for the child size, obviously. The adult sizes are a little bit different, but we're making the child size in this demonstration. Oops. And we're about halfway around to this plain round, and we'll keep going, getting there. Oops. And we're almost at the end again. And you've got a couple of options for the brim. You can either do a plain brim or a ribbed brim, and today we're going to do the ribbed brim. So, a few more stitches to go on this round. And we're going to do a slip stitch into that second chain from the beginning of the round. There we are. Yarn over, draw it through everything that was on the hook, and now that round is joined too. And you can see those edges, the sides there coming around nicely. And now we're going to begin that brim. There's a couple of decreases that need to happen just before our ribbing begins. So the first round, we're going to do 2 chain, just like all our other rounds. Then we're going to do 1 treble in each of the next 7 stitches. Oh, I've split my yarn there. I'll start that stitch again. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we're going to do a decrease over the next 2 stitches. So over this stitch and this stitch, the decrease will be performed. So I'm going to do yarn over into this stitch, yarn over, draw it back through. And I've got the 3 loops on my hook, and I'll do a yarn over and draw it through the first 2 stitches, but I won't complete that treble by doing a yarn over and drawing it through the next 2 stitches. I'm going to begin my next treble in this stitch here. So yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, draw it back through. And I've actually got 4 loops on my hook at this point. Yarn over and I'll draw it through the first 2 stitches. And now I have 3 loops on my hook, and I've got 2 partially complete trebles here, here and here. And I'm going to do a yarn over and draw it through all 3 loops that are on my hook, completing the 2 partially completed trebles, and therefore decreasing 1 stitch. So you can actually see those 2 trebles are now coming into 1 stitch. So these 2 trebles now ending in 1 stitch. So they've come together like that. So that's our decrease stitch. Now we're going to do 1 treble in each of the next 8 stitches. So I'll just get my fingers ready again. So I've got my yarn over, and we'll do 1 treble in each of the next 8 stitches. Then we'll do another decrease. So we'll actually be decreasing 4 stitches all the way around, and we'll end up with 36 stitches at the end of this round before we begin our actual ribbing section. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we'll do another decrease happening over these 2 stitches here. So that's yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, draw it through, yarn over through the first 2 stitches, then I begin the next stitch, so yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, draw it through, yarn over through the first 2 stitches, and then I'm going to do yarn over through all 3. And you can see those 2 stitches coming together. So these 2 stitches here coming together in that decrease. Then I'll do yarn over into the next 8 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, I've split my yarn. I think this is 6. I will count those. 7. And 8. Let's have a look. So we've got a decrease there, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. So we're up to another decrease, yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, draw it back through, and yarn over through the first 2, yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over through the first 2 stitches, and yarn over through all 3. And we've got that decrease happening there, just there. Now we're almost at the end of this round, so I'll do yarn over in the next 8 stitches, and then we'll decrease over the last 2 stitches. That's 1. What have I got happening there? Is that actually coming through? Yes, 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 1 didn't work. I'll try it again. 7 and 8. And then I'm going to decrease over the last 2 stitches. See if I can rescue this one. Yeah. So let's see. Into this first stitch. There we are. And then I'm going to close this round just like I've closed all the other rounds, and then we'll be able to begin our actual ribbing. So slip stitch, it's yarn over, draw it through everything that's on the hook. Beautiful. Now, this is where we start our ribbing, which is made up using front post trebles and back post trebles. So I'll start with 2 chain just like every other round, and then I'm going to do a front post treble. So it's just like a normal treble, but the positioning of the treble is a little bit different. So this is my next stitch, and I'm going to do a front post treble. So my treble is going to be around the post of the treble rather than into the top of the stitch. So my hook is going to go from the front, in between the two trebles, to the back, and then to the front again. So you can see my hook is around the treble. That's my treble stitch from the previous round there. Then I'll do yarn over, and I'm going to draw that back through. So now I've got 3 loops on my hook, just like a normal treble, and I'll complete the treble just like a normal treble as well from this point. So yarn over, and I'll draw it through the first 2 loops, and yarn over through the last 2 loops. So the only thing that's different about that treble is the position that it's in, and it's holding on to that treble around the post of the treble, and it's at the front. And what I mean by the front is that it's at the front of the work, closest to me, facing me. And then the next stitch is going to be a back post treble. So it's the same thing, but it'll be at the back. So at the back of the work, the furthest away from me. So yarn over, and my hook is going to go from the back of the work to the front, around the post of the treble, and to the back of the work. So you can see the treble that's the treble there. And I'll do yarn over and draw it back through. And at this point, it's just completed like a normal treble. So I've got my 3 loops over my hook, and I'll just complete that like a normal treble. So yarn over through the first 2 loops and yarn over through the last 2 loops. The next stitch will be a front post treble, and we'll take it in turns from there on all the way around. So front post, back post, front post, back post. So the next one is a front post treble. So I'm going from front to back, and you can see my treble is there over my hook. Yarn over, draw it through, and then complete it like a normal treble. The next one will be a back post treble. So we go from the back of the work And what you'll see happens is that this creates a ridge in the work, or ridges in the work, and it will give the appearance of a rib stitch on the brim. And it does gather the work in a little bit like a rib stitch as well. And it's a nice textural stitch. And we'll do one more round of this as well to make it quite prominent and distinct on the brim of the hat. Or maybe we'll just do one round. It probably only needs one round on the child's hat. Oh, I seem to have an extra stitch there. Don't want that. I'd picked up an extra loop that I didn't need. Oh, I must have forgotten to do my yarn over. Hang on. And it can be a little bit awkward doing this stitch because you are sort of reaching your hook around in unusual positions. So you don't have to use a little bit of extra patience, but it's worthwhile because it does create a lovely finish.
Thank you very much. That's good.
It's what we all do, isn't it?
Yeah. That's doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I always
It's
make
just
up
all
my
been
own.
knitted, but it still comes up right. Yeah. Okay, thank you. See you later. Bye.
It's one of those is probably mine. 4 balls of yellow wool.
And so about halfway around.
Okay then, thank you. Hey, are you doing your lessons back yet? Not yet. No.
Yeah, bright yellow.
Is it just recent, Lynn?
Yeah, she rang yesterday.
Oh, Lynn Williams. There we go. Yep, got it.
Oops. Rescue.
Yes, it's very weak wool. Doesn't take much to break it. It's very lovely wool. Yeah, it's the possum, and so you just have to. If I go to the end of the row and go like that, and just take a little bit too tight to break, it's very fragile. Yeah. Yeah, I would feel it, but I'll leave you, Vicky. You can shake that. It just literally, like even this one. Yeah.
Oops.
Okay, that's the little use it up stronger, but you can't even tug it too hard.
Almost around.
Well, I normally do the first couple. Yeah. And I'm not it's just
And here we go.
And I did that double strand, so I noticed sewing up with the line at the end of the lace weight of that time. I should have used one strand of that and one strand of something stronger because all you could do is kind of that. And I've got
And we're getting there.
Yeah, one thread of that, one thread of that. And I'll do that with this too. I think it'll just yeah. 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 I remember my mother-in-law strand was something difficult. It was kind of wasn't fishing line, but it was something red, so red, but it was really strong and it was clear. She used it very
Just about there. And we're almost finished our hat.
it's just not the normal card I use. But because of Easter, my pay has gone through. So that's the normal card I use that I use all the time, and that's the just in case. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And just a few more stitches to go and we will be at the end of our beanie and it will be complete. And the last one will be a front post treble. Here we are. And then I will join with a slip stitch in the second chain from the beginning of the round, just like we have with all our other rounds. Slip stitch. Just draw a loop there. And here we've got our beautiful little hat complete, and I'll just snip that yarn. And then we've got our finished hat. So we've gone right from the very start up here, where we increased every round, and then we did our sides where we didn't increase any. Then we did a little bit of a decrease, and then we've made our ribbed brim. Now, when you finish your ribbed brim, you might like to give it a little bit of a pull, and this will draw down the front post and back post trebles into a position where they create a slightly better rib pattern. And you can see that textural pattern there. And there you've got your beautiful new hat complete. And thanks for joining me for this little tutorial on how to make your very first crochet beanie. Thanks.